If you have been buying pasta sauce from any of these brands, you may want to hear this before your next trip to the grocery store. Because behind the colorful labels and the promises of old world Italian flavor, some of the biggest pasta sauce brands in America have been hiding problems that most shoppers never hear about. Ingredients that are far from traditional, product recalls that quietly disappear from headlines, and corporate controversies that rarely make it onto the jar label. To understand what is really happening, we spent weeks digging through FDA recall records class, action lawsuits, environmental food safety reports, and corporate financial disclosures. And what we found was not pretty. In some cases, investigators discovered plastic fragments inside sealed jars. In others, there were lawsuits over misleading labeling. And in one shocking case, a senior executive was even accused of mocking the very customers buying the product. But the deeper we looked, the clearer something else became. A small group of massive corporations controls most of the pasta sauce you see on supermarket shelves. Different brands, different labels, but often the same companies behind them. So today we are revealing 8 pasta sauce brands sold across the United States that you should know about before buying your next jar. And the brand at number 1 will surprise a lot of people. Number 8, Barole. If you have ever picked up a jar of Barole pasta sauce because the name sounds Italian, you are not alone. That is exactly the impression the brand wants you to have. But Barole has not been an Italian company for a very long time. In 2014, the global corporation Unilever sold both Barole and Ragu to the Mizken Group, a Japanese condiment company, in a deal worth $2.15 billion. That acquisition transferred ownership of 2 major American processing plants, one in Owensboro, Kentucky, and another in Stockton, California, which means the sauce many shoppers imagine coming from the hills of Tuscany is actually produced in the American heartland by a Japanese-owned corporation. And the Barole name has already carried controversy across other product lines. A separate class action lawsuit once alleged that Barole olive oil products sold under license by another company were labeled as imported from Italy, even though the olives were actually sourced from different countries. For many consumers, this raised an uncomfortable question. How much of the Italian story behind these products is real, and how much of it is simply marketing? And this is only the beginning. Number 7, Prego. Prego pasta sauce has been a familiar name in American kitchens for decades. The brand was introduced in 1981 by the Campbell Soup Company and quickly became one of the most widely recognized pasta sauces in the United States. But even long-established brands are not immune to serious problems. In 2010, Campbell Soup Company issued a recall involving certain Prego pasta sauces after reports that pieces of plastic may have entered some jars during production. According to the company, the issue was traced back to a packaging component that had malfunctioned during manufacturing. Although the recall was limited and no widespread injuries were reported, the situation raised concerns among consumers about quality control inside large-scale food production facilities. Food recalls like this are not extremely common, but they also are not rare. The United States Food and Drug Administration regularly monitors food manufacturing plants, and when something goes wrong, companies are required to remove affected products from store shelves. For shoppers standing in a grocery aisle, the problem is that most recalls happen quietly. Unless someone follows food safety alerts or happens to see the news, they may never know a product they bought was involved in a recall. Prego remains widely sold across the country, and millions of jars are purchased every year. But the recall serves as a reminder that even the most recognizable brands can experience manufacturing failures that most customers never see. Number 6, Newman Own. At first glance, Newman Own pasta sauce appears to be one of the most trustworthy brands on the shelf. The company was founded by actor Paul Newman and built its reputation on a simple promise: 100% of profits go to charity. That mission has helped the brand earn enormous goodwill from consumers for decades. But even brands built around charitable causes can face controversy. In recent years, a legal dispute emerged involving the Newman-owned foundation and members of the Newman family. The conflict centered around how the company was being managed and how its charitable mission was being carried forward after Paul Newman passed away. Some family members argued that the structure of the organization had changed in ways that could affect how the brand honored the original vision. The lawsuit attracted media attention and raised questions about the future direction of the company. While the sauce itself was not accused of safety issues, the situation showed how corporate governance conflicts can still affect even the most respected food brands. For shoppers, the jar on the shelf may look the same, but behind the label, there can be complicated legal battles that most consumers never hear about. And the deeper we go down this list, the more surprising the stories become. Number 5. Ragu. For generations, Ragu has been one of the most recognizable pasta sauce brands in the United States. Many American families grew up seeing the familiar jar in their kitchen cabinets, and the brand built its identity around the idea of traditional Italian home cooking. But in 2019, Ragu faced a large-scale recall that affected several varieties of its pasta sauce. The recall was announced after concerns that certain jars may have contained fragments of plastic. The affected products were produced at a manufacturing facility and distributed across multiple states in the United States. Although no widespread injuries were confirmed, the company advised consumers not to use the products and to return them to stores for a refund. Food safety experts often explain that plastic contamination can occur during the manufacturing or packaging process when small components break or wear down inside industrial equipment. When millions of jars are produced every year, even a minor equipment issue can potentially affect large batches of food. For many shoppers, the recall was surprising because ragu has long been considered a household staple. But the incident once again highlighted how large-scale food production carries risks that most consumers rarely think about when placing a jar into their shopping cart. And the next brand on our list brings us to a completely different type of controversy. Number 4. Classico. Classico pasta sauce has long marketed itself with an image of authentic Italian tradition. The glass jars even resemble old-style mason jars which many consumers reuse at home after the sauce is finished. But in 2022, the brand became the center of a surprising legal controversy. A lawsuit was filed arguing that the Classico jars were marketed as mason jars even though they were not designed to safely handle the pressure involved in home canning. According to the complaint, some consumers believed the jars could be reused for preserving food because of the mason jar style appearance and labeling. However, the manufacturer later stated that the jars were not intended for that purpose. The lawsuit claimed this could create a risk if people attempted to reuse the jars for pressure-based food preservation. The case drew national attention and sparked conversations online about how packaging design can influence consumer expectations. While the sauce itself was not accused of contamination, the situation showed how even packaging choices can lead to legal disputes and confusion among buyers. For many shoppers, the jar simply looked reusable. But the controversy reminded people that appearance and function are not always the same thing. Number 3. Great Value. Great Value is the store brand sold by Walmart and it appears on thousands of grocery shelves across the United States. Because it is often priced lower than national brands, many shoppers choose it as a budget-friendly option for everyday meals. But store brands like Great Value are usually produced by third-party manufacturers rather than a single dedicated company. That means different products under the same label can come from completely different factories. In some cases, food safety investigations have raised concerns about quality control at facilities producing private label foods across the industry. When something goes wrong, the brand name on the jar may be the store brand, but the manufacturing process may involve several outside suppliers. For consumers, this creates a layer of distance between the product on the shelf and the facility where it was actually produced. While Great Value pasta sauce continues to be widely sold, the structure of private label manufacturing often makes it harder for shoppers to trace exactly where their food is coming from. And the next brand on our list brings us to a controversy that shocked many customers when it first surfaced. Number 2. Victoria. Victoria pasta sauce has built its reputation around the idea of premium slow-cooked recipes and traditional ingredients. The brand often highlights its small batch style production and markets itself as a higher-end alternative to many mass-produced sauces. But the company behind Victoria Sauce's Sovos brands has also been involved in major corporate developments that attracted attention in the food industry. In 2023, the food giant Campbell Soup Company announced plans to acquire Sovos brands in a deal worth more than $2.7 billion. The acquisition meant that Victoria, along with other popular products, would eventually fall under the umbrella of one of the largest food corporations in the United States. For some consumers, this raised questions about how smaller premium brands change once they become part of much larger corporate structures. Large acquisitions can sometimes lead to changes in sourcing production scale or ingredient strategies as companies integrate new brands into global supply chains. While the sauces themselves remain popular, the deal illustrated how quickly ownership behind familiar grocery products can shift. And now, we arrive at the brand that generated one of the most shocking controversies connected to pasta sauce in recent years. Number 1, Rao. Rao pasta sauce is often presented as one of the most premium options in the supermarket. Many shoppers believe they are paying extra for higher quality ingredients and a sauce that stays true to traditional Italian recipes. The brand originally grew from the famous Rao restaurant in New York, and over time, the sauces became some of the most popular premium jars on grocery shelves. But in 2023, Rao became the center of a controversy that shocked many loyal customers. During the same acquisition deal in which Campbell Soup Company moved to purchase Sovos brands, the company behind Rao, an internal message from a senior executive was leaked. In that message, the executive reportedly referred to customers who bought Rao pasta sauce as fools who were willing to pay extremely high prices for jarred sauce. When the comments became public, the backlash was immediate. Many consumers felt insulted by the suggestion that they were being taken advantage of simply because they trusted the brand. The company later attempted to address the situation, but the incident raised uncomfortable questions about how some corporations view the customers buying their products. For shoppers, it was a reminder that the friendly image presented on a food label does not always reflect the internal culture of the company behind it. And this brings us to a larger question. With so many brands owned by massive corporations and so many ingredients and manufacturing steps hidden behind labels, how can consumers actually know what they are buying? The truth is, the grocery store is full of products that look traditional and authentic on the outside. But the real story is often much more complicated once you start digging beneath the label. In the end, the stories behind these pasta sauce brands reveal something far bigger than a few isolated controversies. What appears on the grocery shelf as a simple jar of tomato sauce often represents a vast industrial system shaped by global corporations, complex supply chains, and aggressive marketing strategies. The labels may promise traditional Italian recipes, homemade flavor, and authentic heritage, but the reality behind many of these products can be far more complicated. From product recalls involving plastic fragments to lawsuits over misleading packaging from corporate acquisitions worth billions of dollars, to leaked comments that shocked loyal customers, each case shows how the image presented to consumers does not always match the story behind the brand. Many of the sauces that seem to come from different companies are often produced by the same handful of massive food corporations controlling large portions of the market. None of this necessarily means that every jar on the shelf is unsafe or that every company is acting irresponsibly. But it does highlight an important reality. The modern food industry is far more complex than the nostalgic images printed on packaging might suggest. For consumers, awareness is one of the most powerful tools available. Reading ingredient labels, paying attention to recalls, and understanding who actually owns the brands we buy can make a real difference in the choices we make. Because the next time you reach for a jar of pasta sauce, the most important ingredient might not be tomatoes at all. It might be the truth behind the label.